Incoming transmission. Initiating data compilation protocol. Compilation complete. Enhancing. Enhancing. Initializing data playback. Code Alpha. Begin playback.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Madness AM for, what is it today? November 25th, 2015. And holy crap, it's been a while since I did one of these. Long time no see. Last one was, what, July? So, yeah, lots of things have happened between now and then. Sorry it's been such a long time. Hey, it's almost like a break in seasons, at least. That's what I'm telling myself right now. So there's the silver lining for me. But yeah, it's been cold. It's been cold here in Austin the past few days. Not so much today. It's warmed up considerably last night and this morning. But the past few days, it's been getting down into the 30s, which actually feels really nice. It's nice to have a break from the heat, finally. I do much better in colder temperatures, personally. But yeah, it's been a while. Jeez, what was going on at the end of July? I was having a bunch of problems with my wisdom teeth, or the gums surrounding the wisdom teeth. Sometimes I am told when your wisdom teeth don't come in all the way and they just kind of hang out there in the back. Mine weren't impacted or anything, but the gums can leave extra flaps hanging out partially over the backs of the wisdom teeth. In my case, the bottom two wisdom teeth. And your top wisdom teeth can grind into them. And what can happen underneath those flaps of gums is stuff can get stuck in the back there. Food particles and I don't know, whatever the hell else you put in your mouth. And it can get infected, and it's called pericarditis. And I'd been getting little episodes of that now and again over the past few years. And this year in particular, it got really bad. And it can be kind of painful to the point where it's pretty distracting. So finally I was like, let's just get rid of these. I didn't want to keep going to the doctor and getting antibiotics every damn time I had some chips or something, or usually like any kind of crunchy food, like peanuts or something could cause a little sharp piece to get stuck in the back there and make it inflamed and infected, and then the top wisdom teeth grind down into the inflamed bits in the back. So that was what was kind of going on with me through August, I believe it was, or it might have been through August, and then at the end of August I went and got them out because they had to get rid of the initial infection first, so I had to take antibiotics to clear that up, and then finally they were able to get in there and pull all four of them out, and went with all four of them at the same time. And this one right here was kind of a bastard. And I remember being partially aware of it when the dentist was trying to yank it out. And when it came out, the root was all curved and had a hook, so it was grinding its way out of my jaw. But afterwards, man, I was pretty miserable. I was expecting some discomfort, right? You have these gaping wounds in your mouth, so it's not going to feel stupendous. But I was not expecting like all the blood and leakage and constantly spitting. And I guess you got to be very careful about spitting, because otherwise you can mess up the healing process in the gums. So it was if nothing else, it was all very fascinating. And I remember being partially aware when they were extracting the things and being like, oh, this is really fascinating. This is really cool. And I'm sure they hear all kinds of wacky shit come out of people's mouths when they're under the anesthetics. But yeah, it was interesting, especially because I couldn't feel any of the pain because I was all doped up. But after it all wore off, of course, I was just like, ugh. So I wasn't spitting or anything. I couldn't spit because I didn't want to mess up any healing or blood clots. So a lot of the time was spent just kind of hanging out over a bag, just sort of letting everything drain. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. And of course, the hooked root of this wisdom tooth in question made the recovery process a little interesting. There's one way to put it. But yeah, that in combination with just trying to get as much done as I can before the year is out on the game caused me to put stuff like this on the back burner. So apologies again for not doing these more frequently. But here's another one, because there's been a lot going on in the past few months. So yeah, let's see what else is going on. Got my wisdom teeth taken out, all better. Yeah, working on the game like crazy over the past few months. Once the wisdom tooth thing cleared up, especially through October, I was just grinding away at the thing. Created a lot of new content that you can check out in the updates, either on the Kickstarter page or on the Savage page on Planet Tobor itself. Lots of new enemies. It was the season for spooky stuff, so it was a good excuse to start doing things like wolves and spiders and specters and things like that. The Undead Warriors are now fully operational. They were interesting because given the way that they are, they could they can spawn naked, just a pure skeleton, or bits of armor, or different kinds of helmets, and they don't have to sort of adhere to any one legion style or anything like that. They're just dead. They're they could be anything. So it was fun to come up with different items for them to be equipped with and to spawn with, and some that spawn with spears, and some that spawn with fancy scimitar type blades and broken swords and rags, or more substantial armor, helmets without spikes, helmets with spikes, and any combination of those things can sort of dictate their behavior, which is kind of neat, and consequently makes them a much more interesting and more entertaining enemy to fight with. For example, the spear guys are a lot more prone to do jumping, lunging attacks, which none of the other humanoid enemies in the game up to this point have really done. They kind of stick to the ground, and they'll do charges or lunges or things like that. But and also if certain skeletons spawn with shields, they can make it more difficult for you to pull off a stun stomp. In the game, if you land on an enemy's unprotected head, you can stun them for a few seconds, depending on how your stun skill is in the game. But what they can do if they spawn with a shield, they can raise their shield up above their head, and the player will land on the shield, and it can be pretty unfortunate for the player if the skeleton's shield has a spike on it. So it's almost like they have their own little hazard that they can create on the fly. So yeah, it's allowed me to experiment a lot more with some more interesting enemy variety and enemy tactics. So there's that. New area called Black Fen in the game now. That's visually, a lot of it is ripped off of games like Ghouls and Ghosts and Demon's Crest specifically. Drew a lot of inspiration from the starter areas in those games. So lots of tombish and torture looking things and dead trees and black and bleak foggy marshland and stuff off in the background. Lots and lots of parallax layers. Can never have too many parallax layers. I am addicted to parallax scrolling, as I found out while working on this project. But yeah, tons of new stuff in there that I'm very happy with. A lot of new enemy routines and AI routines that just kind of spice things up and make it a more enjoyable experience. Still a long way to go, man. Still a long way to go, of course. But at least now I'm kind of in the content grind portion of our show of the project, where it just needs more stuff. I've been saying that for a while, but it's true. It needs more stuff. It needs more armor sets and weapon sets and shields, etc., enemies and bad guys to make the different biomes and areas on the world map feel relevant and matter. There's also a large amount of polish that I have to go through as well. The UI in particular needs a little something. It needs more attention, especially where equipping shields and things like that is concerned. If you've played the alpha demo, it's a couple years old now. Equipping shields, if I remember right, is kind of a weird process. Like shields, when you pick up a shield, it gets added to your weapon inventory. So weapons is kind of a loaded term in the game, I guess. It could be shields or throwing weapons or melee weapons and things like that. So even though on the UI there is a section for shields, but it's not interactive. You can't access like a shield menu. So I still have to figure little tiny quality of life things like that out, and just juice up the UI in general, make it a little nicer looking. And character moments too. There needs to be a few more character moments. There's still a fair amount of work to do on the story, and some of the dialogue sequences and stuff like that need a lot more attention. But I am doing the final lap on content now for sure. Only a handful of enemies still need to be created, animated, coded, put in the game. A few more bosses. The boss I'm working on right now is Kickstarter reward tier for one of the backers, for one of the higher tier reward, the highest, I think, for the Gizmoten boss. And that's been a challenge, to say the least, because the game's universe is a very low magic, low sorcery universe. If you are a sorcerer or a wizard or any kind of magician, chances are you're pretty nuts, and you've kind of done a lot of digging into the occult and are tampering with things best left untampered with. It's not like something like the Elder Scrolls or Warcraft or any of those games where you could be walking around in town, or Final Fantasy, and there's like a wizard shop. And there's guys walking around with staffs that are on fire or glowing, and that's kind of a common occurrence in those universes. In this game, it's very, for the most part, it's like, do those guys even exist? I've heard legends and stories about crazy people that can talk to the dead, or that can move things with their mind, or start fires, or commune with demons, old gods, and people don't generally see that just out and about. It's not an everyday thing. It's more something that exists in myth and legend, and sort of local legend. So the character that I'm working on is a sorcerer type, and a lot of it I just kind of like I did at the very beginning with a lot of this stuff. I just had to kind of make things up as I went because it didn't exist prior to this. So this is a whole new version of that, where I'm not used to creating sort of magic visual effects and people that can teleport and fly and stuff like that. It's a new thing for me. I don't have any templates that exist for any of this stuff, so it's been a challenge. So there's been a lot of coming up with a concept or a look of something and having to scrap it and start over and just be like, no, that sucks. I'm almost done with him visually anyway. I'm almost done with all of his sprite sets and his animation routines and stuff. And I'm happy with it. It's just taken a while. It's a lot of stubbing of the toe to get here with that particular character, but it's good. It's good. It's a good problem to have to tackle something that is needed, but I haven't addressed yet. It sort of it takes a look at something that is my weak point, and I'm trying to strengthen it. And overall, my overall average is just going to get better, and the project itself is going to benefit overall. And become a more well-rounded, solid thing. This is something that my friend Tim and I talk about, and he's brought up this concept to me, and I always think about him, and I always think about this what he's told to me when he's working on his game, is that you want to try to improve on your weaknesses in a project like this, because if you just wind up grinding out on the stuff that you're probably excelling at, your room for improvement isn't that big. You might be up here and you've got a few other issues. For example, like my NPC stuff is like down here, and a lot of my story stuff is sort of down here, and but my control and my combat and my melee system is like up here, and if I try to keep grinding away at that, there's only so much improvements you can make before you hit that ceiling, and up to a point, it's just sort of superfluous. It doesn't matter a whole lot. You already had something that was working really well, and it's good. You might as well go down here and take a look at this stuff and improve it, and your overall average just everything gets better. And in theory, the project benefits and the improvements are way more noticeable. So I'm always thinking about that when I'm addressing certain issues and problems that I have yet to solve. So it's like, yeah, take a break from tweaking, shield knockback and stuff like that, and the rate at which the player sort of bounces back when he hits a solid with his sword or something, and look at this other stuff that's severely lacking and boost that, and I'll have a finished product quicker rather than later, instead of fiddling around with this crap that's arguably finished, arguably in a very almost polished and good state. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that right now. I have been taking a little bit of a break this week, just because I've been feeling it, especially after last month and into this month. All the stuff that I've been pouring into the game has left me kind of a little physically broken, sitting here at the computer. My elbows and my arms, I can feel the tendons just rising up against me. You gotta take care of yourself when you're doing stuff like this, man. It helps to stop every half an hour to an hour and maybe walk around outside, go for a walk, do some push-ups, or some stretches. Just keep the blood flowing, and especially, oh man, in this chair, I tried to remove the armrests because these have been driving me nuts. Resting my elbows on it, creating these really strange little pains in my elbows. And I tried to remove the armrests, thinking that I could just modify my chair and have something way more comfortable for what I'm doing. And no, that is not the case, because this particular chair, the back of it is held up by the armrests. So there I am, unscrewing taking apart the armrests and stuff, and the back of the chair just falls on my head. Right on my ear. Why the ear? It was a pain in the ass. So I was like, whatever. So yeah, there's 100 little things that you can do to improve your posture and your how much damage you're doing to your body when you sit here for hours and hours coding or doing art or anything like that. So that's something that I'm figuring out as I go as well. So yeah. What else? Yeah, this week, Thanksgiving, we're not really doing a whole lot for it. We're just kind of hanging out. But it feels like a good time to sort of take a break and address these, little physical concerns and give my body a rest and focus on working out, eating better. It's just, something that doesn't involve me like sitting here coding away, ruining my tendons and my muscles and my legs and things like that. And yeah, man, you got to take care of yourself when you're sedentary like this. You got to unsedentary yourself and move around and exercise, drink lots of water. So yeah, extra challenges for me to overcome. It's a balance. It's a balancing act. And I've never been good at juggling. So, but yeah, this week I've just had a huge hankering to play some stuff like Elder Scrolls. So I loaded up Arena, old clunky junky Arena. But it's interesting to take a look at games like this, especially when I'm coming to a point in Savage where I need to do a big push on the story elements and the lore elements and stuff like that. So it's interesting to take a look at some of these older games and newer games too, like things like Skyrim and Oblivion and Morrowind, and look at what sort of makes them tick under the hood. And I mean, Bethesda games, in my opinion, have never had the best delivery systems on their storytelling, if that makes sense. I remember Morrowind having a lot of really interesting plot points and things, and some of the NPC writing was pretty good, though a lot of it was very samey. A lot of it was kind of copy paste. I guess for something like that, you want to look at like Planescape Torment and Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. But the immersion factor in the Elder Scrolls games is just kind of amazing. I mean, there's about 1 billion elements that make up a lot of that stuff. But it's interesting to go back and look at and see what the developers did to bring their worlds to life and make them a believable place to hang out in. And I mean, I know Savage is just a 2D platformer, but it exists in this world that I've created that has a lot of that stuff. That has folklore and religions and languages and cultures and subcultures and cults and so it pays to look at stuff like this. But I've also played a little bit of Odalis: The Dark Call, which I've mentioned before, and a few other 2D action platformer games and stuff. Just kind of looking around and seeing what's out there in the sort of lo-fi 2D action platformer space. And I got a bone to pick here with some of this stuff. And Savage is by no means perfect in this regard either, but excuse me, I think a lot of people when they're making a piece of interactive fiction like this, or a video game with very specific mechanics like a platformer. A lot of times I play these games and I run into an issue with the control. A lot of times the control just doesn't really feel that good to me. The weapon reach is kind of weird if it's a melee platformer game, which I've been playing a lot of. Or there's like a handful of games that I've been playing that are action platformers with a melee system in them, and I find myself struggling with them and getting kind of upset because I feel like not enough attention has been paid to the actual control, the mechanisms in the control, and the speed that the player moves, and the distance that you can be before striking an enemy, and what happens when you strike an enemy. When your melee object or instance collides with an enemy instance, what happens there? What happens in that moment? What kind of sound goes off? What happens to your horizontal speed? What happens to the enemy's horizontal speed? Do they kind of bounce off a little bit? Is there a little bit of friction, that a deceleration rate that slows them down slightly, or do you come to a complete stop when you hit an attack button? Do you kind of slide a little bit into the attack? Little things like that. There's a lot of games I've played lately like that just don't have the extra attention put into little details like that I feel like just would have elevated the experience that much more. Would have given these tiny little character moments, all along the way. And that's something that I've really tried to hit home with on Savage, is which largely is thanks to Zelda 2. Zelda 2 had all these little things that happened in combat. You're running and you hit an attack button, your melee strike button, and your character just doesn't come to a complete stop. Your horizontal speed isn't killed. You gradually come to a stop depending on the weapon you're using in Savage 2. Like if you're using a big old heavy weapon, you might slide to speed 0. Might take you a little bit longer than if you're using a smaller, easier to control weapon like a sword or a dagger or something. But when your weapon strikes another enemy, your horizontal speed is killed because you've struck something solid. And then the enemy, kind of moves a little tiny bit, based on your speed and your striking power and your striking force. Stuff like that, I think, just kind of makes the game a little more interesting and dynamic as far as control goes. Control, you must learn control. So I've just I've been kind of and I ran it at my friend Tim about this too. Just how it's unfortunate that not enough people sort of pay attention. I mean, it could be a design decision too. I'm not trying to rag on anybody, but I feel like there are little things that you can do to just kind of juice it a little bit and make it more impactful. Give the player a little bit more interesting feedback. Make it feel a little better. Combination of math and audio can go a long way. You ever play a game like that with a melee system where the melee strikes, when they actually collide with either a solid or an enemy, it just doesn't really feel all that great. Maybe it doesn't have enough punch. There's not enough of a small little release there. It's you have your tension. You're drawing back your weapon. You're gonna strike. There's the tension. You hit the enemy. There's that release. And it can be exaggerated, I guess, or punctuated with a little bit more sound. It's just a little tiny moment, a little tiny character moment of, that felt good. A great example, and I know I brought this up before, at least I think I brought this up before, is the original Dragon Warrior on NES. That game is not an action game. You run into an enemy on the overworld map or whatever. you have your random encounters, and you don't even see your character either. All it is a picture of a slime, you know, a little slime or whatever it is, a skeleton or a scorpion or you know, and you select attack from the menu, and you hear this little kind of derpy little swinging sound effect using the NES's sound chip, and it has a little, and then it goes bam and smashes the guy, and the guy flickers really fast, and that communicates your swing and your strike. And there's enough tension and release in that little tiny moment to make it feel really good. But you're not actually moving your character around. You're not actually, you know, distancing yourself from a guy, and you're not strafing around an enemy looking for an opening. All you did was select an option from your menu of actions available to you. You selected attack, and he struck the bad guy, and it creates this satisfying little noise, the satisfying little swing sound effect, and a strike, and then the enemy flickers, and in that moment, it delivers to the player just a really satisfying release. And I've been playing a lot of these action platforming, where arguably things like that are way more important than in a menu-driven turn-based combat system, where obviously it's welcome in those systems, obviously, because that's what I remember from Dragon Warrior is that sort of thing. So it's like a combination of that and the Zelda 2 physics, and yeah, my own little weird experiments that I want to give to the player in these little tiny moments, because you know, you have enough of those little tiny moments all the time, these satisfying little instances, and that can just elevate the overall experience theoretically. So, but we'll see, right? This could be a spectacular failure still. We don't know. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with you know, where I'm at in my headspace, thinking about design and what's important, and with a game like this, with a game like Savage, and yeah, the world would be a happier, better place if if everybody listened to me. No, yeah, just interesting things to think about. It might be worth sort of doing a little video or something and dissecting a discussion like that, just to better understand it, you know, if nothing else for my benefit, because I find that talking about stuff like this and exploring it and trying to articulate it sometimes brings about these little, you know, micro revelations that, like, oh, hey, you know, yeah, maybe that's why I like doing that stuff in these games, is because this game gave me those little moments of release that maybe this other game didn't, and maybe that's why I remember this one a little more than this other one. But yeah, good player feedback, good control and feedback are kind of what I've been trying to perfect. You know, you can't get to perfection, but it's nice to try. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for this little vloggy thing. Yeah, take care of yourself if you're doing the stuff that I'm doing. Learn from my stupid little mistakes where my body's getting sad and mad at me. And yeah, you guys have a good one, and I will talk to you the next time I do this. Thank you so much for listening, and take care.
No, baby. Hey. When? Hey. No, baby. No.